American science policy has 5 fundamental principles. Though these principles are not codified in law, they have been so enshrined in American public life that no agency deviates very far from them. These principles not only help protect and support science as they're intended, but they also help American government be a better democracy in dealing with the scientific community. Hi, this is David Allen Grier. The 5 fundamental principles come from a report that was written in 1945 called Science, the Endless Frontier. The principal author of this report was Vannevar Bush, who was a scientist. He was a professor of engineering at MIT. But he had also served on and off as an advisor and as a science administrator for the United States government. His last role during the Second World War was to lead the Office of Scientific Research and Development. The first principle of American science policy is that of stable funding. Whatever the extent of support may be, reads the report, there must be stability of funds over a period of years so that long-range programs may be undertaken. This idea seems obvious to us now, but American science policy, at least science policy before World War II, was often driven by war or economic emergencies. There were spikes of interest, particularly during the Civil War, during the First World War, and after the Second World War began. There was also an increased interest during the Great Depression, although much of this interest focused on the idea of keeping students in school. We have generally followed that plan over the past 2 decades. This slide shows the flatness of the budgets across 3 different administrations. The variations that have occurred recently have come largely from the needs of the recent recession. The second principle concerns the leadership of scientific policy. The report says that the leaders should be chosen on the basis of their interest and capacity to promote the work of science. This is not necessarily the same things as saying that science policy should be run by scientists. A good science administrator needs other skills as well. They need to know administrative procedure, understand budgets, and have the political ability to get people to agree. Perhaps the current head of the National Science Foundation, France Cordoba, is a typical example. She was trained as an astrophysicist, but has spent much of her career doing administrative work. She was an administrator in the national labs, she's been an administrator at NASA, and she was the president of Purdue University. For their third principle, Bush and his co-authors recommended that the United States conduct the bulk of its research through contracts with universities and private corporations. Prior to the publication of Science, the Endless Frontier, there had been a debate in the country about whether or not the United States should create a national laboratory and use that laboratory as the site of the bulk of its research. Bush and his colleagues strongly disagreed. First, they wanted research spread geographically across the nation, so it would get people with different skills, different experiences, who lived in different parts of the country. They also wanted it closely connected to the educational process, to the process of creating the next generation of engineers and scientists. But they had 2 other reasons that primarily benefited the government. First, they wanted flexibility. Bush knew that even the best scientists might have only 1 or 2 or perhaps 3 ideas that they could contribute to science. So if a scientist had a permanent relationship with the government, then the government might quickly discover that they were supporting a laboratory that was no longer producing interesting results. With a contractual relationship, the government could terminate the laboratory and move on and redirect its funds into new, more promising areas of science. Also, Bush knew, as did everyone else who helped write Science, the Endless Frontier, that science ensures high quality through rejection. It puts scientists working on the same problem, then chooses only the top results to publish or to fund. In the modern age, the top journals publish only about 1/4 of the papers that they receive. The rest are rejected. The modern NSF also funds only about 1/4 of the proposals given to it. Through both processes, we have some idea that we are funding or publishing only the best ideas, or at least the ideas that have the greatest promise. The fourth policy concerns the relationship between the universities and government. Science, the Endless Frontier, makes it very clear that it considers the basic internal policies of universities, their personnel decisions, the method and scope of research should be left to the universities, and the government should have no say in it. We generally think of this as a way of isolating the political views of scientists from the pressures of government. Not long after this report came out, the former technical director of the Manhattan Project, Robert Oppenheimer, faced a security hearing over his political beliefs and ultimately lost his security clearance. But it has a much wider application as well. During the 1930s, when research was funded by the New Deal, some of the administrators felt that there was pressure to support students and researchers who agreed with the New Deal. This policy is designed to ensure that scientists aren't judged by their political views. Finally, there is the reporting structure for any unit that deals with science policy. Bush and his co-authors argued that science agencies should report directly to the president. Most people interpret this policy as saying that it marks the importance of science, and they're not wrong. Science is indeed important to governments, and one of the ways we can symbolize it is making sure that scientific research agencies report to high political figures. But there's a second reason as well. It's to mark the civic responsibility of science agencies. The head of a science agency, be it the NSF or any other organization, cannot hide administrative malfeasance behind the idea that scientists control their own activities. The head of the NSF or any other organization can be held responsible for taxpayers' money, and they can be removed from office because of misuse of that money or any other administrative misuse. It has been only tested once, which was in 1953. That year, Eisenhower's Secretary of Commerce removed the director of the National Bureau of Standards. The scientific community rallied behind that director, and there were a substantial number of hearings and investigations. These hearings revealed that this final principle touches two very important claims by two very different communities: the right of scientists to choose their own leaders and to have scientists make decisions about science, and the right of a democratic people to make sure that their leaders are responsible to them. These 5 principles are where American science policy begins. They're designed to help us bridge the gap between a democracy and a meritocracy, between American government and the world of science. In American democracy, institutions have to be responsive to the electorate, and every citizen stands equal before the law. In science, some people have more authority than others. Only scientists can comment on the agenda of science. Only they can determine what are the right forms of research. Only they can criticize results. These principles help us bridge that gap. Oh, they've been bent and twisted from time to time. But in the end, they remain the fundamental tool which we use to help these two communities move together towards common aims and goals. This is David Allen Grier. Take care.